Hello, welcome to another edition of the Talking Basketball podcast. I am Mark.
I am Paul. Hello, Mark.
Hello, and we've got another guest today.
Hey, we have got a huge guest today, Mark.
How huge is the guest?
It does not get bigger.
Are you sure?
Than this. Mark, this is one of our biggest guests so far.
You've had a dilemma about how to announce this particular character.
Yeah, because there's quite a few ways I can do this, but with no hesitation, here goes. Yeah, now stand and cheer for your FIBA GB guard / forward, number 60, Keith White. Keith, we got it.
We got it in the end.
Did it.
Good. Thank you.
Second time's a charm.
Yeah, no one knows that.
No one needs to know there's a few edits there.
Yeah. Keith, how you doing? You okay?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Very good.
Very good. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And, you know, for our guests, I'm going to rattle through some of the things we're going to talk with Keith today. FIBA GB at number 60 for the over 60s. You know, he came back from Malaga last year. ESBA, that's the European Senior Basketball Association. Mark, come back from Portugal as well.
Wow.
You know what? Also, Keith can give a bit of an insight on the Newcastle Eagles BBL team. He's there all the time. He hasn't missed a single game. He used to be an 80s National League legend for the Clayton Glass Newcastle. And yeah. So Keith, welcome.
So where do you want to start, Keith? Where do you want to start?
There's so much with Keith. I don't know. I generally don't know where to start.
Let's go. Let's do chronological. How did you get into basketball? When did you pick that up and everything, Keith?
Well, like everybody, I think I played a little bit at school. When I left school, never really did much with it. And then a friend of mine invited me along to a local club in Washington, in the Tyne and Wear. So that was around, about 1978.
Wow.
So
I wasn't even born, Keith.
So I played local league for a few years and progressed into what was then the Northern Premier League. So I played for a team called Dairy Crest Durham for a little while. And then from there, they started the National League team at Newcastle and went along to the trials for that, and ended up on the squad for that for a couple of seasons.
And that's the Clayton Glass Newcastle team.
Yeah.
And look, Keith, I hope you don't mind me asking this question, but I just wanted to get your perception on the legend. I'm just getting a picture up for Mark here. Oh, it's just refreshed. Damn it. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the legend known as Gary Johnson. Like, what was he like as a person? What was he like to play with?
Oh, he was a tremendous guy, really. We were quite good friends in his time at Newcastle. So I remember when he first came to training, he'd not long been in the country, and we were in the gym, and we just I was blown away by the speed of the guy. It was just unreal. And to give you an idea, at the end of the session, we used to do suicide runs. Everybody's favorite, free throw line, halfway back, etc. And Gary always used to finish a full court length ahead of everybody else.
Wow.
And we were like, he can't be touching the lines, surely. And we watched him one day, and he was touching the lines. He was just so fast, it was unreal.
Wow.
But yeah, great guy. He played with us for a season or so. And then I think he played in Calderdale, and not sure where else he played.
I think he ended up with the Leicester Riders as well.
Did he?
I think so, yeah.
I lost contact with him, but any time at Newcastle, he was great. I mean, he was our top scorer every game. Just brilliant and ideal for me. At that time, I was a shooting guard, so you could just float around on the wing and he would penetrate and draw in about 3 guys and then just kick it out. But tremendous player and a great guy, yeah.
And you're talking sort of the 80s time frame here.
This is 83, 84.
Yeah.
Because
it's
Gary Johnson.
It's nice also hearing with Newcastle as well, when you're saying with having a National League team and Portsmouth having the National League team around that same sort of time, coming into that sort of frame. It seems that late 70s, early 80s was quite a time period for basketball in the UK taking off.
And I mean, there was slightly different rules to what there is now. You were only allowed 2 foreign players on every team, and the rest of them had to be English nationals.
Oh wow!
So I think there was 2 foreign players and 1 dual national was your maximum.
Was
and
that,
then the rest
was that
of
worldwide? Was it?
Huh?
Is that worldwide? So you could have 2 Americans, and then that was it. You couldn't have anyone.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh wow. I think it's quite. I think it's similar still in National League now. You're allowed 2 international players.
Yeah.
I think you're allowed more, but you can only play 2 at any one time. I think.
Yeah.
In the National League, yeah, not in
BBL. I don't know.
Not
What,
in
I don't know what the rules are on that.
If they did that, the BBL, they'd lose half their teams, I think.
So I've heard a few people say his pace. Gary Johnson's pace was just unmatched
Unreal.
in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, everything Keith, I want to say, is Newcastle, Mark. Everything with Keith. Local league is all Newcastle. Following Newcastle Eagles in the BBL. And, one of the stories where I heard about Keith was when Keith was actually on the Newcastle Eagles court. That's the
on the court,
Virtue Motors
nice.
Court.
What were you doing on the court then, Keith?
Well,
is that normal to get on the court, Keith? By the way, because if you say to us go on our BBL court, we'd be like, that is amazing. But is it are there local league teams going on there as well?
What you don't see on the screen when there's a BBL game, they play lengthways in the center of the floor. But when the seats are all folded back, there are 3 courts which go crossways.
Oh.
So if you're on the center court going crossways, you use the same center circle where the Eagles logo is, but you go the opposite way.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's got to look cool.
So that's the court they use for the women's games and stuff like that. Shortly after the stadium was built, a friend of mine had an idea of starting a veterans club, and we were lucky enough to get the opportunity to have that as a venue. So every Sunday morning, anybody over 35 could go down and pay some money and go and train in the arena. So that's basically how I got back into basketball after having had a long time off. And the first club session I remember, Paul Blake was there, and myself and a few other people who used to play National League. So that's where it all started off. That was probably early 2019 when that club started.
Oh wow!
So I've been going training there fairly regular ever since that club started. Really, there's 3 divisions for the club now. It kind of expanded. So initially it was just a Sunday morning run around with over 35 players who had either stopped playing and wanted to play again, or thought the local league was a bit too quick for them, or whatever. So that was great, but it's progressed a bit now, and we now have a team in the local league. It's all still over 35 people.
Brilliant.
Who play in the local league with the team, and they have a separate night and train separately to the Sunday mornings. And then this year we started a beginners class for over 35. So if anybody over 35 who wanted to play basketball, who've never played before, or who had played basketball years and years ago and wanted to get back fit. They run an hour session on a Sunday with some coaching involved to get people back in the game.
And what's the club called?
Well, because it was based at the Eagles, we thought we can't really call ourselves Eagles. So somebody said, well, we're all old, so we'll just call ourselves Bald Eagles.
Bald, yeah. The Bald Eagles.
I like that. That's good.
Well, there you go.
So that's when the Bald Eagles Club was born, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's a great
name.
That's
like you say, it's a club and there's a league in place with that, and a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
Well, big shout out to everyone in Newcastle, part of the Bold Eagles setup. And if you're looking to play basketball in Newcastle, look no further than the Bold Eagles if you're over 35.
The Newcastle Bold Eagle.
That's a great name.
That is a great
name. So Keith, I know what you're about to say here, but I've deliberately not told Mark, and there's a reason I've not told Mark, and that will be apparent when you tell your story, because there's this big great story that you've got on the court. So why don't you tell us about that?
Okay, so September last year, went along the arena to train as normal. The weeks leading up to that didn't feel any different. Got up Sunday morning, just a normal day, went along the arena. So we did a small warm up in the arena, and then we split off and decided to play some half court basketball. So I sat out for a little while, and then after a few minutes I subbed in and started playing basketball half court. And then I was aware that I wasn't quite feeling well. Didn't feel well at all. Had a strange sort of sensation across my chest, but just generally didn't feel well. So I subbed off and went and sat on the side. And one of the guys came over and said, "You okay?" I said, "Well, I'm not really." I said, "I'm not feeling too good." So I don't know what's wrong, but I don't feel very well. And as luck would have it, there was a guy there who's a consultant at the eye infirmary, so he's got some medical background, who came across and took one look at us and asked us what was wrong. And the next thing I know, he was on the phone for an ambulance. And I said, "Oh, I don't feel that bad." He says, "Oh, come in the reception and we'll wait for the ambulance." So went in the reception, and then I remember things got a bit fuzzy. I went really lightheaded, and at which point they had me lying on the floor. And I can remember them being on the phone for the ambulance and stuff. And then I can remember this was a bit weird. All of a sudden I looked up and Paul Blake standing there, and I said, "Where have you come from?" And apparently he was just in the area, and they must have phoned and said, "Oh, there's a bit of an issue." So anyhow, the ambulance never came, but what they did do was put it in a car and took us to the Royal Victoria Hospital. So Paul Blake came to the hospital with me, and one of the lads drove me there. Straight into A&E, and they did some blood tests and ECGs and stuff, and then come out and said, "Oh, we think you've had a heart attack." So I was like, "Well, whatever. I haven't had any signs of that. I don't tick any of the boxes. Like, I'm not overweight. I don't drink, don't smoke, etc., etc." But apparently the blood test came back and said there was a heart attack. So they booked me in for an angiogram. So when they did the angiogram, where they put dye through your blood and have a look at the flow through the arteries, there's two arteries are narrowed, and they were corrected with a stent in one of them, and the other one was corrected with an angioplasty, where they put like a balloon into the artery and blow it up, and then let it down. It stretches out the artery. And then 24 hours after that, I was released from hospital with some what looked like half a chemist shop of pills, and then started to recover from there. But it was quite a shock, and I still can't believe it was an actual heart attack, because I wasn't really in any great pain or anything. Just felt a bit unwell, but that's what happened. It was just weird.
What was the recovery like, Keith?
Well, shortly after going to A&E, I felt okay, because they gave me a bit of treatment there with some whatever they give you. And the only problem was waiting for the angiogram to get done, because that was the week of the Queen's funeral. So everything was delayed because doctors and nurses were off for that and stuff. But once I'd had the angiogram, felt absolutely fine, like nothing had happened really. But I had to rest for a week to let the stent bed in and stuff like that. Then it was very mild exercise for the week after, which I continued the week after that. And then I went back to work after 3 weeks.
Wow.
But my main concern was whether I'd be allowed to play basketball again, or whether it would be out of the question. I didn't really know. So I was put on what's called a cardio rehab program, and which basically entails some controlled exercise, nothing too spectacular. It was just basically circuit training. So they had stations around the gym where it was, there was a bike, and there was like a trumpet you would jog on, dumbbells to do bicep curls and stuff, just a minute on each station. But they just that was twice a week for 6 weeks, and they gradually increased the pace and the workload until they were fairly satisfied that there was no long-term issues. My heart hadn't sustained any damage because I did a scan. So it was just literally these two partially blocked arteries that was the issue, and they've now been fixed. So after the 6-week program on this rehab, I started going back to Sunday morning training, and built on that. And then 3 months after that, I was back training with the GB squad.
Wow. What were they like when you turned up for training? Were they were like, Keith, no, don't run so quick.
They were the medic there was nervous.
Back, there was quite a few concerned faces. Yeah.
Yeah, the medic was nervous.
I
for
bet
sure.
Paul Blake was there. He was there going, Keith, take it slow.
Yeah, apparently sport's good for your health,
Yeah.
But that transition back into playing that's amazing.
Yeah, but it just felt, I don't know, it just felt the natural thing to do was to slowly build back up to where I was prior to it happening, because I didn't really feel that physically that much different afterwards to what I did before. So I just thought, carry on, really. And then, so from having the heart attack in September, the next European Championships was in the June of the year after, in Portugal, and we went there and competed there. So
amazing.
It was all good.
How'd you guys do that?
I think we finished 15th out of 23 teams.
Oh, nice.
That's the ESBA. The European.
That was the
Senior
one in
Basketball
Portugal, yeah.
Yeah.
Ironically, the over 60s age group, the men's over 60s age group, always has the biggest entry. So there was 23 teams in our group from Italy, Spain, Czech Republic, all over the place. And then some of the younger age groups, like the over 45s and what have you, there was only like half a dozen teams in there. So it's
really
weird
surprising.
that the over 60s is always the biggest entry.
Yeah,
Don't know.
it's
I thought it
surprising.
would be the 40s
Yeah,
because that's people coming
Yeah.
out of the game, and then you're like, I still want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I guess some people get to that point where they physically go, I can't compete at X level now, and then they almost have to step away for a while. 5-10 years. Like Andy Rowland, for example, stepped away for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then he went, no, I want to get back to it.
Yeah, a lot of people do that actually. They miss the game. They've got that love
10
for the
years
game.
or a long enough times, because they say, I can't now compete at this level anymore. And that's almost frustrating. It's almost like being sat on the bench. Like you're so frustrated that you got to that point. I might say someone like LeBron's at, but you see someone now who's say 22 or 23 that they could run rings around. I mean, you were talking about that Cat earlier, where someone's got that speed and agility. And then fast forward towards the end of the career, although they were still fast, they weren't the same as day one. And you've got to have that transition, haven't you, between?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Masters and the FIBA stuff is all a great gateway for people to do that, to get back into it and see if they can still compete with people of their own age. Whereas if you're in a local league or whatever, you've got like kids 20 and 25 running 100 miles an hour. You don't really know if you're still competitive, do you, until you get in amongst your own age group. So it's an ideal opportunity, really, to find that out, I suppose. Yeah.
So Keith, let's go straight into FIBA GB then. Yeah. So you're number 60 for FIBA GB. So I mean, I know the whole Malaga thing. It was going to happen, then it got delayed and all that, and then it finally happened. So why don't you tell us about the tournament that didn't happen for ages, and then it finally happened?
Okay, so it was supposed to happen in June of 2020, but that was right in the middle of the pandemic. So that was cancelled. It was rescheduled for the year after, which was 2021 in June, but that was like the second wave of the pandemic again. So that was cancelled. And it finally got underway in June of 2023 in Malaga. Again, the over 60s men was the biggest category. I think there was 25 teams in our group. So there was group stages initially with, I think there was four or five teams in each group. We won our group, and then in true GB style, lost the first round of the knockouts. So that meant we were playing for lower places. I think we finished 12th or something, 12th out of 25 in that one.
So even if you get knocked out the first round, you still have games to play. Okay, that's good.
So the group stages go through, and for you to progress up the ladder, you need to win the first round of the knockouts. If you don't, you go through to the lower places playoffs. So you still play somebody else for a knockout, but it's, instead of it being from 1st to 6th or whatever, you're now playing for 12th to 6th. And if you lose that one, then you're playing for a place, below that.
So what's Malaga like then? Like with the whole, like, because you're going over there with what, like 12, 15 guys? But then you've got all the other team, the ladies team, the other age bracket. So are you all together?
Yeah, pretty much. We were mostly all in the same hotel. So the women's and men's of different age groups were all pretty much in the same hotel, which was good for transportation and stuff. And also like a good social atmosphere as well.
I was going to say that it's got to be a good laugh. When
you've
got like great. 10 teams or something, it's got to be a good laugh.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, you just get it's just talking basketball all the time. You see somebody in a GB kit and you go and have a drink and we're talking basketball, and it's just really, really good. It's a great atmosphere.
And how many teams are there in total that go over in terms of GB wise? How many are there?
Well, the men's teams start over 35s, over 40s, 45s, 50s, 55s, 60s, 65s, and 70s. So there's at least 8 men's teams.
Wow.
I think it's the
And I
same
think
for the women as well.
there'd be, yeah, I don't think there's another 65 or 70 in the women, but there's certainly an over 60s. So they'll go from 35 to 60.
Yeah. So, I mean,
It's just like 10, 11 teams going out there for GB. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're all in the same place. And talking to some of the other guys who play for FIBA GB, like the over 35s, some of those guys that we've spoken to before, they're just like everyone's supporting everyone. So you might finish your game, you go have a shower, and then you come back out, and then you see, right, the over 60s are playing. Right, I'm now supporting the over 60s. So it is just it's just basketball, and then you might then go and chill out by a pool with those people, and then there's a disco.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just, the camaraderie just seems like just out of this world.
Absolutely. And then Malaga, the over 40s men got to the final, and they played Italy in the final, and there was loads of GB teams turned up and supported them. There must have been 3/4 of the audience that was there watching was all GB team players. So the atmosphere was tremendous, and it was a great game to watch as well. So,
what was your favorite takeaway moment from Malaga?
Favorite takeaway moment? I'm not sure.
Or funny story?
Funny story.
Putting you on the spot here.
No, he's thinking, can I say that?
Yeah. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I do, like I say, I do remember, the over 40s final, which was a great atmosphere. There was loads of us went, and then went for a few beers afterwards. And
was
stuff.
that the Wolf Pack? The guys known as the Wolf Pack?
Yes, that's them.
Everyone always just says they're just an incredible team.
Yeah.
Keith, what's it like when you get your kit? What's it like when you get a kit? You got a kit. It
Your
says
first GB kit.
It's got GB on it.
And it's got your name on the back. Yeah, it's quite good. Yeah.
That's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah. So they did a kit presentation just before we went, and it was quite a thing. Yeah. To get all your kit. So you get so there's 2 kits. There's a blue kit and a white kit, like home and away, and then there's 2 sets of warm-up tops to go with the kit, and then there was some off-court kit to wear around Malaga and when you were traveling there. So everybody's dressed the same. It's great. And we also got a FIBA towel, I believe, as well. That was quite an addition. So yeah, it's quite a moment. Yeah.
There's a bag as well. I've seen a few guys. They have a FIBA GB bag with like the Union Jack on it with their initials. That looks really cool. It's just like, I want one of those.
Pants and socks though. Got to supply your own. They draw the line at pants and socks.
But
you can get FIBA socks.
Really? Oh, yeah. Mate. Oh, yeah. They got merch themselves right up, as many as you can on there. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a great point, because what a feeling you must have when you see a GB jersey, FIBA jersey for a Masters tournament with your name and number on it.
Yeah. And it's like I say, with the off-court kit, to Malaga, there was 4 of us went from this area. So there was myself for the over 60s. There was a friend of mine who plays for the over 55s, and there was 2 women who play on the over 55 women. So we were all in the airport with our off-court kit on, GB kit on. So yeah, it was a great start to the trip as well.
Yeah, that's got to be a great feeling. Just having the flag on there and your name. Oh, very, very cool.
Yeah.
And where are you guys going next? FIBA GB over 50s. Over 60s. Where are you going next?
So the next FIBA European Championships is in Pesaro in Italy in June of 23.
They've got,
so that's the
Italians
next
are good. The Italians are notoriously good. The Italians.
Yeah. Well, we beat the national over 60s Italian team in Portugal, which was quite good. For a lower place, obviously it wasn't like a top game, but that bumped us up to 15th or something instead of being much lower down. So that was quite good to beat them.
Yeah, very nice.
So off to Italy next year, Mark. June next year.
Yeah, very, very nice indeed.
Hey.
What part of Italy?
It's Pesaro in Italy. It's near to Rimini in the northeast of it. Italy.
Coastal town, Mark.
Lovely.
Beach, sea,
Yeah.
swimming pools, camaraderie,
Basketball.
Yeah.
beer. What else do you need?
Yeah, I like the fact
Pizzas.
basketball was like 4th on the list there. Well done.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I mean, so it's you know, we've had a few people on the podcast talk about you know, the whole GB Masters setup, and it's just
It doesn't get. Do you know what? It's funny. There's all these gaps in basketball sometimes. You have your junior teams, then you have some sort of local league teams, and then maybe national or BBL. But people don't always talk about the national teams as much and what they're actually doing. I mean, I think it goes across quite a lot of sports, not just basketball necessarily, like athletics and so forth. But I didn't know anything about GB Maxi or FIBA or any of that sort of stuff till Paul was saying to me.
well, where have you been living?
Yeah, no, but I just genuinely
This is
think because
huge.
it is, but it's not communicated out to people who watch basketball, unless you're in one of the towns where you maybe have a BBL team. And that's, I think, part of the problem that some of the, not just necessarily the BBL, but in the UK, we are very local or geographic based with our basketball. So Newcastle is very well known. It's got very, was it the most prestigious?
Newcastle Eagles, the most prestigious.
They are the most
team
prestigious
of all
BBL
time.
winners, aren't they? The
Yeah.
most wins.
The most decorated team, yeah.
Is it 7 or 11? I think it's 7, isn't it? 7 wins.
Something like that. It's
but you know, the heritage is there. The same as you've got them in London, Manchester. I think Plymouth's been around for quite a long time, and so there's some really established hubs where basketball's played.
Yeah.
If you're outside of that hub, so in the 80s, the early 80s, so Portsmouth was, and then by the 90s it had gone. That was it. And so it was only local league. So anything above that was never communicated down here. Obviously now we're in the world of the internet and everything, so you can stream things, and that's where we're starting to get all this information fed back. But the ceiling for what you could do or how you could play basketball was almost sort of lost in the ether for probably 20 years or so, really. Just never really communicated here because it was all localized.
Marketing is the biggest thing. But, you know, from my perspective, I've said this to every single person who's part of the FIBA GB, there is nothing cooler than being in FIBA GB.
No, absolutely not.
You get the like you're saying, you get the jersey, you put it on, you're playing for your country, you're going abroad. I mean, that is
you're playing a sport you love for your country.
Good as it gets.
That's as good as doing any sport can be.
And you know what? I have to ask this question, and this is probably just from a player's perspective, I guess. The first time you score, you must get goosebumps. That's how I'm visualizing it in my head. If you had that GB jersey on and you score your first 2 points or your first 3 points, you must be like, GB, 2 points.
Yeah, I think it's more of a relief than anything else, because you're on the court and you're under a bit of pressure to perform and stuff. So when the first basket goes in, you kind of can relax a bit then and start playing, you know?
Yeah.
Although, if it is the first shot that you take and then that goes in, the dilemma is you've now got a 100% record. Do you then put another shot up and then change your stats?
Depends what kind of player. If you're
I'm 100%.
If you're 12th man, you'd go, I'm done. But if it was me, I'd have all the kit on. I'd have the bag on. I'd have flags.
You would look like an advert.
Hey, advert me up. Not a
But
problem.
there's nowhere to hide in the games because they do full stats for every game. So it's just like, you know, the
really?
BBL stats, live stats. They
That's
do all
awesome.
that for every game as well.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
so someone could be watching you play and be like, well, not you, just generally, and be like, oh, he's just thrown up an airball.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, mark that down. Yeah, there goes your percentage. Thanks very much.
oh, that's brilliant.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why you'd be conscious. Like,
That's
oh,
brilliant.
I've got 100. I've got just scored 2 in a row now. I'm literally 100%.
Hey.
2 shots, 2 in.
As long as you get the W, doesn't matter what the stats say. As long as you get the W.
What is the not necessarily the standard of the game, but what is the game different in the terms of the way it's played, the way you approach the game when you're playing in the different age categories?
You know what? It's not really. No, it's just the same. It's just the same, but in slow motion, if you know what I mean. Because obviously we're not as quick as we used to be. But all the fundamentals and tactics are all exactly the same. It's no different. Just played at a slower speed. That's all.
Is it strategic? Sorry, Paul. I was just going to say, is it like strategic or running more plays? Is it that sort of basis?
Yeah. We have a playbook and stuff like that. So it's like it's up there with any sort of high standard basketball. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, Mark, like the coaches who are coaching these guys, look, they're, you know, some of them are like National League current coaches and stuff. So it's not like, it's not like, you know, just Dave Butler off the street doing it. It's people who are aspiring at a high level. And then,
absolutely.
You know, from what I've seen from the training sessions and stuff like that, it's like everyone there has been a National League player, and you know, it's almost like from what I've seen, you don't get in the. I could be wrong with this one, but you have to be to a certain standard before you get in.
Well, the reason I ask it was because exactly of that. You've all been National League players, and you've all got quite a high basketball IQ. So that's a slightly different game. When you've got a lot of people with a lot of basketball IQ on the court, that's different to when you're 18 or 20. Yeah, you might have the athleticism there, but you maybe don't have the court vision or the IQ to know, I need to run here, I need to go there, I need to remember that play. I mean, if someone gave me a playbook, it'd be like, that's a waste of time. I'm not going to remember it.
The coaches will be saying something.
Yeah.
And, you know, with, like you said, with the wealth of knowledge that's in that thing, everyone will be like, okay, cool, we're doing that. Like, you know, Keith, he's been playing National League basketball in the 80s, you know, playing with all these, you know, great players. We go in, Man D, okay, yeah, I know what I'm doing. Yep, sure. You know what I mean? It's, I mean, that's a really basic example, but but yeah.
No, it's really, I mean, it's fascinating to hear that there's so many UK teams going out there. I think that's brilliant.
I'm just going to roll back to your story, if that's all right, Keith.
Yeah.
My one question is, are you the only person, I'm going to say the only Newcastle Eagles fan who's had a heart attack on the main court? It's got to be, haven't you? It's fairly new, isn't it? I mean, I'm imagining you're on the center, like on the actual logo. That's where I imagined, you know.
It wasn't quite on the logo. I would say it was more, you know, where the scorer's table is. It was around that area there. So if you ever watch a game and you look at the scorer's table, you say, oh, that's where Keith felt ill.
Well, we're glad you're here and you're not an honorary extra white outline right where that table was.
And I've got to say this because there was one really interesting sentence that Keith said when he was saying his story, was that the Newcastle Eagles chairman, Paul Blake, turned up. And you were like, what are you doing here? I mean, that says something about him.
Oh, yeah, massively.
How he feels about the organisation. I mean, like, were you good friends by that point?
Yeah, I've known Paul for a long time. He used to play local league when I played local league. Because he's originally from Bristol, but he went to Newcastle Polytechnic at the time and studied there. And then he's been in Newcastle ever since. But getting back to the story about, it was him that took us to the hospital, albeit he didn't drive. He didn't tell us until I seen him a fortnight or so afterwards. They had the arena defibrillator in the boot of the car.
Oh, wow. I mean, when he says
On standby.
does he mean he had the jump leads and he was just going to hook the battery up?
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm just sitting thinking, oh, it's not that serious. It'll be fine.
There's always a plan.
But they obviously knew something I didn't, which in hindsight was great, really. So.
But that was the one thing that really stood out for me is like, you know, what a great show of support from him.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
From a chairman perspective, from a friend perspective, what keeps having a heart attack? Boom. Right, he's there. He's then taking you to hospital. Quick, defibrillator. Put it in the boot. I might need that.
Yeah, it's not even... You see some people in positions that are high like that would use that as an opportunity to, I won't say step away from that, but get other people involved and be like, you know, I want to remove myself from this because of publicity or whatever. But actually,
that's taking complete
that's just
ownership,
saying,
isn't it? And just
I want to make sure someone's okay.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Massive respect for that. Massive respect.
Absolutely.
Can you see now why I didn't want to tell you this story before?
I know why you didn't want to tell me this story.
Bringing Keith in. So, do you want to share with Keith?
Yeah, no, I had a heart attack 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, so everything you're talking about, same thing. Other than I wasn't in the Newcastle basketball court, but
no.
Were you at Ravelin, Mark?
No, I was not.
Let me ask you this: did you know at the time you were having a heart attack, or did you just feel ill?
So I went to my mum's. I was stealing her internet, not gonna lie, and she was a nurse for 50 years. And I was like, I feel rough. I was just gonna go get myself a coffee before.
Wasn't she a nurse like in that area with like?
No, she didn't do hearts. She did kidneys. And I should know that, but I should have read a bit. Yeah, so she just took a look at me and was like, I'm just going to phone an ambulance. I was like, what are you on about? I'm just going to get a coffee. I've got a meeting in like 20 minutes. That's why I'm...
Yeah.
But no. By the time she literally put the phone down, I was not in a good place.
Saved your life.
And... Yeah, I'd be dead otherwise, because I was just like, no, I'm fine. And then you just, everything you're talking about, you just feel weird. And then they take you to the hospital and pump me full of drugs and a couple of stents, a bit of inflation, a bit of surgery, and all fun and games. And then coming out like a pharmacist. Rattling as I walk. But it's that happened during COVID for me. So all of those things with recovery and all that sort of stuff, none of that existed, and they wouldn't do it, and so I just had to go out walking with his brother half the time.
2 meters apart.
Yeah, of course, yes, by the rules, 2 meters apart. But because his brother lives around the corner, we literally just went out, and I'd go walk to a certain distance, and that was my rehab. But the only thing I take back from that is, more than anything, you don't, I want to appreciate that your heart is your battery. And of all the things and how it powers you, and it is just literally like you depower and you've just got nothing in the tank, and then you just flop.
Yeah.
And
pretty much.
It was very strange coming back and saying, "Oh, we're just going to walk down there." You go, "Okay," and you get halfway and think, "I'm out of breath." And you think, "Why is that?" 2 days ago, I'd have sprint there in seconds, but no. Very strange. Yeah. It's a strange old world, but...
I don't know if this is a silly question, but what are people... just out of pure curiosity, what are people seeing when they look at you guys in that position that they're going, you're having a heart attack, when you're like, look, I think I'm okay? What are you like holding your heart?
Hollywood lies.
Like, what are they seeing that makes them think
that was mentioned to me that I couldn't see was all colour drained from my face. I was literally grey.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't see that. But all I knew was I felt a bit ill. But I think that was one of the giveaway signs.
Just colour. And who was it? What did you give us the name of the guy who, I mean, because really he could have saved your life. The guy who came over and just went, how you doing, Keith?
This guy is called Ibram. And he was, he still is a consultant at the eye infirmary in Newcastle. So he knows a lot about eyes, but he wasn't a cardio specialist. But
shout out to Ibram.
Ibram, like if he hadn't done that, Keith, you might not be talking to us.
No.
Like it's
true, yeah.
It's those
it makes a difference.
little things. Someone sees you and go, I mean, like Ibrahim and your mum phone an ambulance straight away. Like,
Yeah, because they know what they're looking for, which other people necessarily wouldn't.
Yeah.
And it was more of a come out of surgery and they go, oh, congratulations, you made it through. Sort of, was it that bad? Yeah, yeah, it was real bad. But you don't know that at the time. It's just.
He sent me a text saying, I'm feeling a bit rough. And I was like, oh, right, what's up? And then he sent me a picture with, like, in hospital with all these things over. And he's just going into surgery, I think, heart attack. It's like, oh, right.
Did you know what I sent to my mum? Because obviously I'd come out of that and I was like, well, I've got to sort of let her know that, because all she saw was me go off in an ambulance. That's it. And I sent a message when I got out. So I thought, what can I write that she'll know it's me rather than someone else doing it? So
Yeah.
I just wrote, FYI, not dead.
FYI, not dead yet.
Yeah, and that's it. And she's like, why would you send that to me? I'm like, well, you know it's me. It's not someone random just saying it. It's like, why would anyone else say you have some dark sense of humour? You've got to have. But, well, we're all here. And I was an excuse that he went out and bought a scooter. So he used me to vicariously go and live his life.
Yeah. Sorry, Keith, I interrupted. What were you going to say?
Can't remember now.
It'll come back.
So when you are playing at those sort of at Newcastle, is that that's on the same court that you were talking about where it's twisted twisted the side?
I was playing on that very same court. I think this is the first time I've been playing on that particular court since it happened, and I was playing there on last Wednesday.
Oh, really?
And it is a bit weird. It's even more weird when you go to a game because you have to pass the spot in reception where I was lying on the floor waiting for the ambulance. So every time you go to a game, you have to walk past that space, which is a bit weird as well. But
listen, you might get Paul Blake put a little honorary plaque there for you.
Yes.
Here almost laid.
Yeah.
Put it by the scorer's table as well.
This spot is dedicated to Keith.
Yeah.
Almost.
You know what?
Almost was buried under here, but not quite.
In 10 years' time, it's going to be like, look, that happened on the Eagle in the centre court. It wasn't the 3 courts, it was the main court.
Yeah.
It was during a halftime show, during a BBL game or pre-BBL game. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. That is the end of this part. But do not worry, because coming soon is the second part of this episode, and it will be available soon.